Credit unions are non-profit organizations that were imported to the United States from Germany in the early 1900s. They were regulated in 1934 by the Federal Credit Union Act, which limits memberships to groups having the common bond of occupation or association groups, particular geographical area eligible. Credit unions are non-profit organizations that were imported to the United States from Germany in the early 1900s. They were also regulated in 1934 by the Federal Credit Union Act, which limits the membership to groups having a common bond of occupation or association. Groups from the particular geographical areas were also eligible to join credit unions. There are there are two main types of market research: quantitative research, which involves collecting of a lot of information by using techniques such as questionnaires, other form of survey. Qualitative qualitative research involves working with the smaller samples of consumers, often asking them to discuss products and services, while researchers note Not quantitative. There are two main types of market research. Quantitative research involves collecting a lot of information by using techniques such as questionnaires and other form of survey. Qualitative research involves working with a smaller sample of consumers, often asking them to discuss products and services while researchers take notes about they say. This course, this course provides an introduction to the history and the development of British legal system. In its aim is okay. This aim is to describe the evolution of the common law of England, the legal system of England, and legal prof, profession of England. To introduce, you can study of constitutions, legal aspects of constitutional system of government. This course, this course provides an introduction to the history and the development of the British legal system. Its aim is to describe the evolution of the common law. This course provides introduction to the history and the development of the British legal system. Its aim is to describe the evolution of the common law of England, the legal system of England and the legal profession of England, and to introduce you the study of the constitutions as law and to the legal aspect of the constitutional system of government. This is an extremely useful resource which ranks books and academic papers on the subject not only in terms of their reliability, but also their readability. As a result, it is likely to save student time and effort would otherwise have been spent working through a lot of dense tests before finding the one they really need. This is an extremely useful resource which ranks books and academic papers on the subject not only in terms of their reliability but also their readability. As a result, it is likely to save student time and effort that would otherwise have been spent working through a lot of dense tests before finding the one they really need. Closure activities allow participants to consolidate learning, say goodbye to group mates, and attend to any unfinished business prior to the ending of the group's experience. Generally, these activities involve some reflection upon what has been learned and accomplished during the preceding time together and sharing those thoughts. Closure activities allowed participants consolidate learning, say goodbye to group mates, and attend to any unfinished business prior to the ending of the group experience. Generally, these activities involve the reflection upon what has been learned or accomplished during the preceding time together and the sharing of those thoughts or insights with those participants. Does language acquire language acquisition may be like other biological functions. The linguistic clumsiness Thus, language acquisition might be like other biological functions. The linguistic something of tourists and students might be the price we pay for the linguistic genius we displayed as babies, just as the something of ages the price we pay for the something of youth.
I look forward to meeting you and to helping you realize your goals.
I look forward to meeting you and help you to realize your goals.
Read the fitness center instructions before attempting to use the equipment.
Read before the fitness instructions before attempting to use the equipment.
The books are filled with drawings of machines he invented when he was a student.
The book filled with the drawing of machines he invented when he was a student.
Financial support can be offered to help pay your fees and other costs.
Financial support can be offered to help you pay for your fees and other costs.
It is necessary to solve the equation to determine the unknown variable.
It is necessary to solve the equation to determine the something variable.
The book is informative, but it could be accused of political bias.
The book is informative but could be accused for political bias.
During an official ceremony, a memorandum of understanding was signed by the academic dean.
During the official ceremony, something of understanding was signed by the dean of the academic.
Our tutorial will take place on the second floor in room 1.
Our tutorial will take place on the second floor in room 1.
The library offers group study rooms so you can work with other students.
The library offers a group study room so you can work with other students.
Proficiency in a foreign language may be demonstrated by assessment.
Proficiency in foreign language may be demonstrated by the assessments. This graph shows information about average rainfall in inches. According to the graph, we can see the New York is 47.25 inches. According to the graph, when you look at the Dallas, which is about 33 inches. According to the graph, it's quite clear to see that. When you look at the Phoenix, which is about 7 inches, according to the graph, it's quite clear to see that. When you look at Honolulu, which is about 22%, in conclusion, its very informative graph shows information about average rainfall in inches. Process of recycling. The first step of the graph. This graph shows information about the step of recycling. According to the graph, it's quite clear to see that. When you look at the first step of the graph is manufacturers. According to the graph, it's quite clear to see that. When you look at the second tab of the graph, which is retailers. According to the graph, it's quite clear to see that. When you look at the next step of the graph is consumers. According to the graph, it's quite clear to see that the final step is recycles. In conclusion, there's 4 steps in this recycling process. Amount of food wasted per year in UK. Megatons per year. Food and drink, distribution, retail, thrown away, saved, recycled. This graph shows information about amount of food waste per year in the UK. Items include megaton per year and saved, recycled, and thrown away. According to the graph, it's quite clear to see that food and drink manufacturers recycled more than thrown away. According to the graph, it's quite clear to see that private household has the largest number in thrown away, which is about 9 megaton per year. According to the graph, we can see hospitality sectors and institutions. In conclusion, it's a very informative graph. Embryo, eggs, tadpole, embryo, frog. This graph shows information about the life cycle of a frog. According to the graph, it's quite clear to see that the first step of the process is eggs. According to the graph, it's quite clear to see that the next step of the process is embryo. According to the graph, the next step is tadpole. According to the graph, it's quite clear to see that the next step is tadpole with 2 legs. According to the graph, we can see the next step is tadpole with 4 legs. According to the graph, we can see the final step is become a frog. In conclusion, it's a very informative graph shows information about the life cycle of a frog. Percentage of students aged from 5 to 17 taught at home in USA from 1999 to 2012. This graph shows information about percentage of students aged from 5 to 17 taught at home in USA from 1999 to 2012. According to the graph, we can see in 2007 there is a 2.9%. According to the graph, we can see 2003 is about 2.2%. According to the graph in 2012, which is the largest number, is 3.4%. According to the graph 1991, which is the smallest number, which is about 1.7%. In conclusion, it's a very informative graph. Percentage of students from disadvantaged backgrounds. 2006 to 2014. This graph shows information about the percentage of students from disadvantaged backgrounds entering university in England from 2006 to 2014 from 10% to 20%. According to the graph, we can see the whole period, there is a 60% increase. According to the graph, you can see the 2006 has the lowest number, which is about 12%. According to the graph, you can see 2014 has the largest number, which is about 18%. According to the graph, it's quite clear to see that 2013 has the second largest number. In conclusion, it's very informative.
So let me begin with the notion of a dimension. The dimension is simply how many numbers that you need to specify a location. So if we think about the surface of the Earth, the equator is one-dimensional. You need to specify only one number to specify a location on the equator, namely the longitude. The surface of the Earth altogether is, of course, two-dimensional. You need to specify two numbers, the latitude and longitude, to specify a location on the Earth. The space above the Earth is three-dimensional. If I want to tell you the location of a hang glider, I need to give you the latitude, longitude, and altitude. But mathematically, there's no reason to stop at 3 dimensions. A 4-dimensional space is simply a space in which you need to specify 4 numbers to specify a location in that space. A 5-dimensional space would be one in which you need to specify 5 numbers, etc. In fact, I claim you already know an example of a 4-dimensional space. So let's define an event just to be an occurrence that happens in a small region of space at a definite time. In other words, an event is like a snap of your fingers or a clap of your hands. And now the collection of all events, if I want to specify an event, I need to give you 4 numbers. I need to tell you where it happens in space and when it happens in time.
This lecture was talking about dimensions, numbers needed to specific location. In the first part of the lecture, speaker mentioned equator and longitude. In the next part of the lecture, speaker mentioned the surface of the Earth. In the next part of the lecture, speaker mentioned 3-dimensional and 4-dimension. In the next part of the lecture, speaker mentioned events, small number, and space. In the final part of the lecture, the speaker mentioned where, when, and time. In the last part of the speaker mentioned the latitude and altitude. In conclusion, it's a very informative lecture.
The first results on the Welsh language were reported in March 2003. The census found that there were 576,000 Welsh speakers aged 3 and over, or 21% of the population, which represents a 2% increase since 1991. The proportion of people in Wales aged 3 and over who can speak, read and write Welsh increased from 13.6% to 16.3% over the period 1991 to 2001. A further 138,000, or 5% of the population, said they understood Welsh but did not speak it. In addition, 84,000 gave a combination of positive responses that was imprecise, making it difficult to work out whether they could understand, speak, read, or write Welsh. The growth in the number of Welsh speakers has occurred largely in the south and east of the country.
This lecture was talking about a Welsh speaker. In the first part of the lecture, speaker mentioned over 3-year-olds and 20% of the population. In the next part of the lecture, speaker mentioned in 1991, there's 4.6%. In the next part of the lecture, speaker mentioned in 2001, there's 60.2%. In the next part of the lecture, speaker mentioned there's 5% of people who understood but do not speak Welsh. In the final part of the lecture, speaker mentioned read, write. In conclusion, it's very informative.
The most visible manifestation of this wealth was a series of grand projects that were begun by Napoleon III, mainly in Paris, soon after he came to power in the 1850s. He said, "I want to be a second Augustus," making reference to the Emperor Augustus's claim that he'd found Rome a city of brick and left it one of marble. In the case of Napoleon III, he found Paris in 1851 a city of cobblestones and twisting medieval streets, and he left it one of asphalt and macadam, because what he began doing was bulldozing old Paris, the ancient medieval part of Paris, and replacing it with wide new boulevards, 85 miles of them, that he lit with some 20,000 gas lamps, which he took out all the old 18th century oil lamps, replaced them with gas, which gave a much cleaner, brighter, regular light. Also, 50,000 trees are planted alongside them, many of them the chestnut trees that we now think of as synonymous with Paris. And he drained the streets with 200 miles of sewers, these new famous Parisian sewers beneath the streets, thereby making the city a much more safer, pleasant place to wander, to stroll, to people watch, to have coffee or absinthe in the cafes.
This lecture was talking about modern Paris. In the first part of the lecture, speaker mentioned the most visited city and begun by Napoleon. In the next part of the lecture, speaker mentioned Rome city and the Paris storm. In the next part of the lecture, speaker mentioned medieval become a wide boulevard. In the next part of the lecture, speaker mentioned cleaner and brighter. In the next part of the lecture, speaker mentioned drain and stray stewer. In the next part of the lecture, speaker mentioned safer place and enjoy coffee. In conclusion, it's a very informative lecture.
How many years are in a decade?
10 years.
What do you use to identify yourself when you arrive in a foreign country?
The answer is passport.
What do you press when you arrive at someone's front door?
Doorbell. Doorbell.
In which academic field do people study things that happened in the past?
History.
What is the occupational title for the composer of a novel?
Author. Writer.
What do you call a person who is receiving care in a hospital?
Patient. Patient.
The terms circumference, diameter, and radius refer most commonly to which geometric shape?
Circle.
What do you call a person who trains a team of athletes?
Coach.
To find a detailed topographical map of Africa, what kind of reference book would be best to use?
Map.
What is the term for an extended speech by one person in a play?
Speech talk show. Solo.